from Yahoo News. Jared Kushner says he's been trying to keep his body in shape because he might one day become immortal. Kushner, former President Donald Trump's son-in-law, said during a live stream this week, he was keeping trim in the event that medical science allows him to live forever. During the stream, Kushner said that he had made it a priority to exercise more after leaving the White House, where he served as a senior advisor to Trump. Okay, let's just, is this it?
Yep, that's it.
And then finally, I think that from the last year, the one thing I've tried to put a priority on since I left the White House was, getting some exercise in. I think that there's a good probability that my generation is, hopefully with the advances in science, either the first generation to live forever or the last generation that's going to die. And so we need to keep ourselves in pretty good shape. And
I went to a meeting in Los Angeles with an organization, I think it was called the Senescence Foundation. Have you heard of that? A scientist, this was a decade ago. This is longer than a decade ago. This is 12 years ago. Scientist by the name of Aubrey de Grey was giving a presentation. And I think he was the one who said this, that he said people under the age of 45 today will live forever. And I could be, it's been a long time since, he may have said live to be 1,000 or something. And he said it's not because in the next 10 years they're going to invent immortality or some kind of treatment. It's that the rate of solving human ailments will outpace the rate at which people are dying from ailments. So that means when you're 80 and your heart is failing, they will have developed a treatment to strengthen and revitalize your heart. Then you live till 100. Then your brain starts going. But by then they've already developed the brain treatment to fix your brain. Then the skin treatment. Then by the time you're 300 years old, they've got a treatment for everything. And now you're basically 300, but you look like you're 24.
Telling you, man, if they have you in a tank of goo, you're moving very slowly. Your body's not aging rapidly, maybe not even aging at all.
But that's hypothetical. Tank of goo. That's the thing. They don't need you in the tank of goo. And actually, my girlfriend.
They don't want you in the tank of goo. Ian, you think they want you to be immortal?
Well,
the goo
they're talking about life extension technology. Jason is dying to talk here. I'm going to let him talk in just a little bit, but I just want to interject with two more points here. Sorry, this is like the old days here. I love it. But Kushner, again, he's not a good person. He's the guy who personally lobbied Donald Trump to bomb Syria. Donald Trump personally listened to him to do this. He also personally lobbied to give a better weapons deal to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, that's committing one of the worst humanitarian crises right now in Yemen. These are not good people. And these are the next people who are going to be gods in our society. This is crazy. Jason, go ahead.
So you talked about Aubrey de Grey. My girlfriend actually interviewed him yesterday. We were watching Immortality Inc., which was a forum that he was on with Calico, by the way, the Immortality division of Google. And
it's of Alphabet. It's one of Alphabet's companies.
Yes. And then Richard Harari, who's a part of, I think, Longevity Inc. And, we study this stuff. And he's talking about, like you said, regenerative technology. In other words, really de-aging and repairing the human body so that physiologically you could live for an indefinite amount of time. Now, this is why the sustainability agenda is extremely dangerous, okay? And how would they get there? So everybody saw Joe Biden at the Global Health Fund kind of go off to the side and look very confused and not know what he was doing, right? Did anybody actually listen to what he said? In a room full of people, first of all, introduced by Bill Gates, up on stage with Trudeau, Macron, all these other players, he talked about how the return for this financially for those that will invest is 31-1 in returns. Now, a lot of people have
said, who do I call to invest in that?
Right? Well, I mean, if you want to get in on it, basically, he said for the nation states and NGOs that are putting in $1 billion, the United States is going to put in $2 billion.
Oh.
Okay, and guess who's paying for that $2 billion? It's me and you. I mean, that's going to be taxpayer money. But while they bring in these modes of control, we're going to be talking about insurmountable profits for these people. So they're motivated to control us and command us into these systems by profit, and we pay for it. Biden may be just, an empty vassal. He can still kind of read off the prompter. So that is the agenda, in my opinion. And while they do that, sustainability is the code word for our standard of living going down. They're consolidating the actual resources and the control over technologies such as, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's several articles about it, of bunkers in case things pop off here, whether it be that nuclear war or something else. And they're utilizing NASA tech.
What if they already discovered immortality? And then like all these wealthy elites, they're like at a company, whatever, Calico, is it the company?
Yeah, that's one of Alphabet's companies.
Let's say they're sitting around and they're like, so guys, we did it. We've figured out immortality. And then how much does it cost? Actually, not that expensive. Maybe like 50 grand a person, and your treatment will make you live forever. And then someone else went, but we don't want most of these people to live forever. They're kind of dickheads. What do? How can we wipe out all of the people before giving only the good people immortality? Because if you give only the good people the immortality, you're only biologically immortal. You can still get crushed by a semi or something, right? So what if, I suppose what I'm trying to get at is, if all of this stuff is true and they really believe this, certainly Vladimir Putin knows a lot about this, why then would he choose to go to war against it? Either, I think the obvious thing is, because he mentioned Satanism and weird stuff, he ideologically opposes whatever this is. Maybe it's coming from a religious place, or he knows he's in on it and they're trying to cull all of the nasty poor people they don't like.
Yeah, your original theory makes a lot of sense here, because a lot of the central controllers and elites that you mentioned that might have life extension technology do already act like vampires and witches, and a lot of them do look like vampires and witches. So a lot of this makes perfect sense, in my opinion. Sorry, you had something to say, Jason.
I mean, when we speculate on these things, right, whether or not there's some kind of collusion behind the scenes on these technologies, all I can say is there is still collusion between Russia and the United States on a level that we're working together. Just last week in Kazakhstan, Russia launched a U.S. astronaut into space with 2 Russian astronauts. There's still joint missions going on at the ISS. I think a lot of that has to do with post-World War II and the space race, and the fact that Russia was the first one to put satellites into space. That created ARPA into DARPA. We know about the Strategic Defense Initiative Program, aka Reagan's Star Wars program. We know that Russia has comparable satellite systems and weapon systems in space as well.
There was also Cyber Polygon, a joint network with the World Economic Forum and Russia and the United States, working on war games and drills of a larger cyber attack on infrastructure. That, of course, is also important to bring up. That happened a couple of months ago.
Yeah, so behind the scenes, I think there is a layer that goes a little bit further. Now, as to how far that layer goes, I think that's where you get into speculation.
Henry Kissinger, one of my favorite people on earth, is 99 years old at the moment. Or I guess, he's 99. He'll be 100 in about 6 months. I wonder if it's like they've already established life longevity, but they're like, how long until they realize that we're not dead? Like, what if I'm 130 and they're still like, I wonder if we'll ever have life extension? They're 160 and they're like, when are we going to develop living forever?
Let me say this. Cryogenics is still a very real thing. Whether or not you're going to be able to reanimate life after being cryogenically frozen, again, kind of a speculative thing, but that technology does exist, is pushed very much in these transhumanist fronts. And I would argue that a lot of these people at the top already do really live longer lives than the vast majority of us. You just said Kissinger at 99.
Yeah.
Look at Prince Philip, well into his 90s. David Rockefeller was like 101 when he died.
And then what happens is,
even John Rockefeller lived
like the Queen,
long time.
Like, once you're a world leader and you die, what they really do is bring you to the Genesis chamber where they de-age you and then claim you're a lost nephew or something.
Yeah, they hit you with a Large Hadron Collider.
I'm just
John D. Rockefeller was 98.
let's be real.
I have to say this for the internet's sake. I'm joking, by the way.
I bet they've been doing life extension for
If they had
a
this
long
technology,
time.
we would not be knowing about it. Let's be real.
Well,
John Rockefeller, 98 years old. In the 1800s, he lived till he was 98.
What
That's
about
nuts.
Walt Disney? Isn't there a conspiracy that Walt Disney froze himself? Right?
That's the cryogenic
And that allegedly
aspect.
they made Frozen as a way to cover that up. That's a rumor
What?
that I heard yesterday.
was
Yeah,
the
that
main
the main
character.
reason that they made the movie Frozen was to, of course, make people look up Frozen Disney, and they wouldn't find out how the former head of Disney froze
that
himself.
is the best conspiracy theory ever.
You mentioned speculation, Jason. I want to speculate. Do you think that there's behind the scenes a larger, I don't know if cabal is the right word, but class of people or people that are attempting to create a class system of wealthy, immortals?
They're the predator class. Well, those are just the open transhumanists. I don't think you have to speculate on that. You can actually go into someone like Ray Kurzweil, who is the head of Calico, and he's been writing about these things for literally 30 years. Okay? Now, he argues that basically biological life on the planet is going to end, and we are going to replace it with something that is not carbon-based. And these entities that we create will be so convincing that they have sentience and spiritual, spiritual experiences, that we will kind of cut our own throats and allot them laws in which they're able to take power. And they're going to be so convincing because they're going to be smarter than us. Now, I know this sounds incredibly wild, but Kurzweil, he's the guy behind the Kurzweil keyboard. He's the guy that predicted the iPad and the iPhone 30 plus years beforehand. And I don't say that just because he got those predictions right, that he'll get these ones right. But he's one of these people that talks about not only the virtual world, but also talks about energy. And here's the thing. So we're all worried about carbon credits, and we're worried about our carbon footprint. That's the big buzz term. You got to be worried about your carbon footprint and how much bad things you're doing to the environment. Well, Kurzweil argues that by 2030, we're going to be able to harness so much solar power, which is still a fraction, that we would be able to power the entire world and all of its needs 10 times over. So, overpopulation is a myth. So there are some points that I actually agree with Kurzweil, and I look into his warnings. And there are other things, like I don't think that we can become sentient beings of light in this singularity that he talks about approaching. Now, at the same time, you do have these open bioengineering programs. And for instance, 2 weeks ago, I think it is now, you had this new executive order on the bioeconomy and sustainability, where they talk about monetizing the biology of the citizenry of this country and how they're going to do that. And they're looking into that. Forget about CBDCs. That's interesting enough. But this whole economy based on your biology really works into what Klaus and the gang, Klaus Nuttschwab, likes to talk about with this fourth industrial revolution, that it becomes you.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.